it because I thought, well, I'm going to have to, but it wasn't easy.
Here we go.
Yeah, I don't know. I can send him, but then he need him. They wouldn't let me scroll. And I still couldn't see.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I remind councillors and all those present that your image and what you say may be broadcast live to the public, so please be mindful of your actions and your comments. You should avoid making statements that might defame or offend, and note that the recording of this meeting will retain online in council's archives. Please turn off your mobile phones or switch to silent. Recording and photography are not permitted in the meeting. Anyone observed performing the meeting may be asked to leave. I now declare the meeting open at 7 p.m. So a warm welcome to everyone who's attending and anyone watching along at home tonight. And I'll do the acknowledgement of the country. We acknowledge the traditional custodian. We live, work and play. We pay our respects to Dark and Jungle country and elders past and present. We recognise the continued connection to these lands and waterways and extend this acknowledgement to their homelands and stories of those who call this place home. We recognise our future leaders and the shared responsibility to care for and protect our place and people. I note all members of the committee are present, therefore there are no apologies. So can everyone now declare if they have any conflict of interest? And I'll say that I don't have any. I'm not going to go around the room. If anyone's got one, now's the time to declare it.
I put in a
Yes.
declaration
Castles, yes.
but it's in terms of the candidates in the which we're going to be looking at in the confidential session. But I will declare that I do know several people who are on that list, and that I have a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest and will remain as part of the discussion and voting when the time comes, should we need to vote.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Smith.
So Chair, similar point. I assume that pretty much all of us know some of these people. So I don't know how you want to handle that. I mean, certainly I can just do a similar declaration, non-significant, non-pecuniary, know a number of people through professional or historical interactions, but none of them are close personal friends. So non-significant, non-pecuniary.
Chair, I'm happy to declare the same.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's going to be the same with all committee members.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I'm not a committee member, but I also declare that I have some personal knowledge and association with, but none of them are close friends.
In my view, for what it's worth, is yes, while I know people, then none of them are close friends or acquaintances, and therefore I don't think there's even a conflict of
You
interest.
don't ever need to declare it?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I mean, unless they live close to you or you're, a close relative or a very good friend, I don't think you need
So
to.
just for the purpose of the minutes, could we probably just minute that it's noted that councillors may know some of the candidates, but only need to declare if they have a close personal relationship that
Yes.
may impact their decision.
Yep, happy to have that noted.
I'm in the session. A close relationship, so if we'll just note it as a general.
Okay, we're on to item 1.3, the confirmation of the minutes. Can somebody move the minutes to be accepted? Councillor Merlin, seconded. Mr. Welsh, discussion? Please raise your hand. Against? Carried unanimously. Okay, exception. So I'll suggest a couple of items, and if you don't want to do them, that's fine by me. So I thought maybe by exception we could do 1.8, just the revocation of the temporary food premise policy, and 1.1 the planning proposal statistics. But as I say, if you want to debate them, then that's fine by me.
You just have a question on the temporary food one. I mean, really just what the definition of it is. So that can be dealt with pretty.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Has anyone else got any suggestions or any other exceptions? So we're happy to move 1.14, the planning proposal statistics, as an exception. Move, councillor Smith.
Yes.
Thank you, seconded.
Oh, yes, I'm happy to say.
Councillor Castles, any further debate on that? Put that, all those in favour say, oh, wait, raise your hand, sorry. Any against? Declare that carried unanimously. So that one's dealt with. 1.14 is crossed out.
Look, I'm sorry, I'm happy for, sorry, 1.8 to be moved by exception. I'll just ask that question later. I don't need to
Oh, okay.
start for the meeting to do that.
All right. So we move that separately. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Stanton. 1.8 to by exception as well. Put that, all those in favour, please raise your hand. Carried unanimously. Those two are dealt with. Now I'll move a procedural motion. One procedural motion. So that item 1.6 be deferred. I think there was some words that the ladies had ready pending the heritage review. The heritage workshop. Yeah, it's coming. And while they're getting that up, and also to defer item 1.16 to the end of the business paper. Little being confidential.
Being confidential.
Yes. Any opposition to that? It's procedural. I don't think it needs a second. Individual. Happy, all right. Put that, all those in favour. Carried unanimously. Okay, so we move on to item 1.5, the Tuggerah Lakes flood study, and we have got a presentation from the staff on this item.
So the presentation's online.
Yes, I'm here.
Maybe if I just ask, Peter, could you just introduce the presentation, please?
Yeah, so we've got, I think, Matthew Glatz, who's going to be presenting, but his colleague or his boss, Bronson McPherson, they both work for Manly Hydraulics Laboratory, and they've prepared this flood study on council's behalf.
Councillor Lamont is here.
Yes, but we'll have the presentation, I guess, and then go to Councillor Lamont, although
Well, you just better check there might be something wrong.
Sorry, no, that's fine. I'll wait for the presentation and then, thank you.
while you're there, Councillor Lamont, as far as the staff are aware, you haven't put in an application to appear remotely.
Oh, really? Okay.
You can do it now. I'm not suggesting you can't do it, and then we'll need to actually pass a resolution to allow you to appear remotely.
I move
Okay.
be permitted to appear remotely.
I think she's got to put the application in, then we can deal with it. I'm not going to knock it back. It just, there's a process I understand you have to follow.
Okay, I'll get that done. That's fine.
So just send her an email to Civic Support should be sufficient.
Yep.
And as soon as we've got
Okay.
that, we'll pass the resolution to her.
Can you do it verbally?
My understanding is that meant to be like a formal
I
request.
know we do have a form, but I'm wondering if that's actually absolutely required. I don't know.
Probably like disclosures, there's a form for that.
Sorry, as councillor Moore is not a member. Doesn't need to.
Every meeting request it.
But there's the provision in there to say that.
Yes. You can resolve it, but it's also not required.
Oh, okay, all right. Apparently it's not required, but we can resolve.
Okay, thanks.
Does that make any sense? It doesn't.
Not for a non-voting member.
All right, hang on, I'll find the
So
resolution.
do you want resolution?
I'll find the resolution. I've got it here somewhere.
Well, she's not a member.
Yeah, that's,
On the screen.
and I must admit, I was under the impression, because I'm not a member, that I don't have to complete any forms, because it's actually optional whether I attend or not. That was my understanding.
There's definitely a form here that says and as an observer. Anyhow, that's all right, it's there. So I'm happy to move that. That's a printer that I can't read, but I'm sure it's fine. To attend, is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Smith. Any debate? We'll put that, all those in favour, please put up your hand. Councillor Walsh, you happy?
Yes.
Yeah. Councillor Stanton? Thank you.
Sorry.
That's all right. No, I understand. That's why I asked. All right, that's passed unanimously. So, Councillor Lamont, I'll come to you
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you.
after the presentation.
Yep.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you with the presentation.
Wait.
Okay. Hopefully everybody hear me well. It's all working. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'll get straight into it because I guess there is a lot to go through there. So Yeah, so good evening, everybody. So with my two colleagues that I present as well and have been introduced by Peter. So we've been working on this Tuggerah Lakes flood study review. So there's been a lot done, and so we'll just go through like with the overview of the presentation. So I'll go overview of everything that happened for that project. So just a bit more on the purpose and the context of the study, a bit of the history of the flooding in the area, the different stages that we did, which is like the data collection, community consultation. We did some extreme value analysis that will explain what it is at the time. Did some modeling, both hydrologic and hydraulic modeling. We assessed some like the entrance configuration because it's an important aspect of this model. We then calibrated and validated the model, did the design event, and then did some extensive and sensitivity analysis. And then we'll show a few examples of the model results and consequences on the community, and then also the next steps. So regarding the purpose of the study, so this is part of the flood risk management program, like in the process. So there's a few different steps, which are like the data collection, the flood study, which is our what the study is about today. And this will lead to the flood risk management study and plan, which are more, the flood study is about understanding what the risk is and what is the exposure to flood. And then the next stage is about finding mitigation for it and what can be done to improve and reduce the risk and improve the flooding. The context of this is also the fact that like we are using the flood risk management manual, which is the latest guidelines, and it's one that is an important information because this is also giving, it shows that like council is acting in good faith under like section 733. So it's like, yeah, it's to make sure that like council is acting in good faith, they need to do a flood study. So flooding in Tuggerah Lake. So the two main flooding that were assessed as part of this study are the mainstream flooding, which is more when the flood comes from different tributaries, rise the lake, and then there's inundation from the lake. And then there's a coastal inundation, which is more when flood, like ocean is elevated and flood into the lake and can generate some flooding as well. There is also like some overland flooding, but this is more like has not been assessed as part of the study because it was assessed separately, and it's more for localized, shorter duration type of flood, while the mainstream there is more longer duration type of rainfall. So quickly on the historical, there was a number of, we just listed a number of different studies, like event that happened over the last 100 years or so. And then it just showed that like the largest kind of anecdotal one was around 2.1 meter HD, and the largest recorded with the gauges that have been there since the mid 1980s is it was July 2022 and was about 1.76 or so. Then we did some data collection, so we collated everything that was useful for this study. So like all the gauges data, we got a bit of an example of where they are located. So it's quite an extensive like number of gauges, topographic and bathymetric data. So it's more the elevation above topographic and below like water, like so like above ground, and bathymetric is like underwater. We checked the aerial imagery and historical photography. We had the drainage network from council. We got, and that we could, anything that we could find, the key bridges and weirs. The entrance behavior was assessed. We assessed like previous studies and FRMSP, so like the floodplain, like the flood risk management study and plan that I mentioned earlier. Land use and zoning, demographic information, so everything we could find to help with this study. Just since the entrance is an important aspect in this study, I just wanted to highlight the fact that it's quite a varying entrance. So it can go from wide entrance to closed. Like I know that closed doesn't really happen very often anymore because like there is always a bit of a small channel in place, but there is some variability, so it's an important factor. So we did some community consultation by preparing like a newsletter and a questionnaire. So it's an example of the newsletter with a QR code to an online questionnaire. We sent about like close to 9,000 letters, and we received about like 480 response back. About about it, like nearly 80% of respondents were like mentioned that they were affected by flooding. Half of the respondents were there for, have been living there for over 10 years. And the majority was like owner occupiers and residential properties. And we also received flood photograph and information on depth and duration. So just in a nutshell, that's like the respondent, just to see that like we generally have a good spread all around the like shoreline. And we had like the green was the one that's mentioned that they were not impacted. The red was saying that they were like flood impacted. Then we did the extreme value analysis. I won't go into too much detail in that one, but it's why we did this is because this tool is like a statistical tool that allows to assess events which are rarer than the period like that we assessed. So like that is something that happens like in a longer period than the period of record. And there is like two different approach, which is like the annual maximum series. So it's looking at all the maximum at each single year. And that's to define a very rare event. And then a bit of a peak of a threshold by selecting a threshold saying, so finding every time that the level is higher than a certain point to get that, to consider that, and then define some like design event and some kind of value of design levels. This is a result. There's a lot of information in this, but really what I want to show is that there is some variability depending on the method used, and they can change sometime in different values. On the left there, I've got the type of event. So AP is annual exceedance probability, and that means that the probability of being exceeded in any single year. So for example, the 1% is like the classic 100 year has a 1% of being exceeded every single year. And this means that like it's not like we move from the 1 in 100 year because it's not like if it happened 1 year, it won't happen for another 100 year. It could happen for several years in a row or even in the same year. But statistically, it would be like a 1% chance. And then we just compared with like the past results, and we were kind of in the similar result between the extreme value analysis and the previous modeling, and except for the lower event where it seemed to be a bit lower than previously for the more frequent. So then we did some hydrologic and hydraulic modeling. So just to summarize, try to do, like there's a lot more to it, but in a nutshell, hydrologic modeling is we're converting rainfall into catchment, like on the catchment into a volume of water and a flow. And then we do hydraulic modeling by converting this volume of water and flow into a flood extent. So a hydrologic model looks like this. It's just like a simplified version, like that's a whole catchment, and then we split it in sub-catchment. We used the WBNM model, which is a well-known model and is used like extensively in New South Wales. This model considers like the catchment area, the rainfall, the type of loss, like of the water into the ground, and if there is any lag parameters, the time it takes to go through each little subcatchment, and then the percentage imperviousness, so how much water is absorbed or not. And this is like a simplified version that can run very quickly, and then it allows us to do a lot of different combination to do a lot of different combination of duration and temporal pattern in a like very efficiently. Once we do the hydrologic model, we move to the hydraulic model, and this is a bit more extensive in numerical, like in computation power. So it takes quite a lot longer. So that's why we do the hydrologic first, and then we get to find the critical kind of type of flood that could happen, and then we input that into this model. And this model is like it's about like 6 meter by 6 meter grid, except for the lake where we go a bit coarser because it's nice and flat, and so the water would just easily be modeled. But this model includes the topography and bathymetry. So the topography was a bit of a mix of all the available survey that we had around the lake. So like we tried to use the most recent one for the entrance particularly, and then we like whatever was available and representative of the more recent condition. It uses roughness, so like how the water is slowed down by the friction on the ground and things like that, like vegetation and other aspect. we use all the culverts and structures which are along the edge of the foreshore, so that when the level gets elevated, it might actually go through a culvert and actually flood a bit further. So this type of thing were included. For the boundary condition, we use the rainfall from there was like information and like the inflow that we got from the hydrologic model, and at the downstream end we use the ocean level as recorded at Sydney, at the Sydney gauge, because it's a more like reliable gauge. And then we came up with like a idealized entrance configuration and opening behavior, because that also have an impact on the model. So for this entrance configuration, we looked at a number of parameters. So like there was some historical experience, like some theory that is very much, there's 3 stages. There's one, there's a bit of a build of a first pilot channel, so a small channel that start building in the berm. Then there's a second stage, which is like you start eroding and you start really opening the entrance, and then it stabilizes a bit later when it's reached a certain size and it starts stabilizing. Then we use the water level, and also we check the berm level. So we had different cross section along the berm. We also use any LiDAR, like any aerial elevation that we have. Entrance bathymetry, so we had like some survey that were completed, so we get this information. We use this satellite imagery, so it allows us to see like what it looks before the flood, during the flood, after the flood, and then some entrance photography, which are kind of similar, where it shows like how it progresses before, and then we can see that it's that the flooding increases and increases. And also some water balance analysis. So this is a bit of a complicated graph there, but it's more, the main point of this was just to check, just based on the water level in the lake, we converted that into a volume because we know what the ground looks like underneath the lake. And then we were just able to check, is the inflow and the outflow kind of making sense with this kind of volume, with the way the volume evolves, so with the way the water level changes, how can we, like, is it making sense that this change in volume? And so that was really useful. This allows us to come up with an entrance configuration, like a conceptual entrance like scour model. And then we just show how it kind of evolving. So we created something that just evolves slowly, where we can see the bluer it gets, the deeper it gets, and it's just kind of like, we do a bit of a scour evolution, like in the entrance. And then we, based on the information available, we had like we came up with like a pre-scour entrance width and a post-scour entrance, and a period of time over which it scours. Then we, once we have developed the model, we want to calibrate it to make sure that it makes sense. So we use real flood events, and we run them in there to see if we can reproduce the results. How we selected this event was more based on the magnitude. We want the big one, obviously, because we're looking into more the kind of more critical type of event. We want the most recent, like we want the recent one possible. We want like where there is data that is available. We want an event where it's actually like if it's a significant event, and like the complexity of the event, because if there is any interaction that are like not quite natural, like then you can have like some more like complexity that might be harder to represent in a model. And we use the July 22 and the June 2007 and the March 2021, like as the 3 main kind of calibration and validation event. And as part of this, we also use historical like past studies. There was like some hydraulic model of the bigger river, of the Wyong River, and then Urimba. And we ran also, like we use this model to help us to kind of consider the floodplain volume loss. This is an example of results. We compared the result of the model with the, like, which is the gray line with the measured number of gauges along the Wyong. Like, so all the one there are the Wyong, and at the bottom is the Urimba. So we're focusing more on the kind of the volume of water, because that's what ends up in the lake, and that's what actually guides the flooding in the lake. So we obtained fairly good results on the hydrologic model. So that's a hydrologic model, and then we use this information into the hydraulic model, and we obtain this type of comparisons. The two colored, the red and the green are the measured level at Longevity and Tukely. And we ran then two different scenarios, which is the black line is the simulated when we assume like the scour, and then the dotted line is when we assume that there's no scour of the entrance. So
Matt,
we
can
really
you maybe, you're probably going a little bit too technical for us councillors, so maybe a bit more of an overview.
Yeah, we
Yep.
might have to go through to some of the results now, Matt.
Yes.
Yep, no worries. So what we ran was more like a number of extent from like the 20%, which is the equivalent of 5 year, to the including like the 10, 5%, like 2%, 1%, and then the PMF, which is the probable maximum flood. So that's what we ran as a design event. And then we also ran a number of just oceanic inundation where there's no flood, but it's just different elevated like ocean condition. I will skip that one. So that's almost like just showing that we did a lot of sensitivity, but the key takeaway was more that like a lot of parameters have very minimal aspect like impact, and there was just like a number of one. So everything is within kind of usually 5 centimeter. That's other sensitivity as well. So I might just go to the results. Here are the results. We obtained like some levels. So the levels here we can show like we can see like what it looks like just on a graph, like each event, and at the bottom that's the PMF, and here's just like the 20% to the, so they're pretty much a 1 in 5 year to 1 in 500 year. And here's a result of the levels. So we can see that we have relatively consistent with the past studies for the rare event. When we get a bit bigger for the rarer event and a bit smaller for the more frequent event.
But the 1 in 100 is about the same as what we had before.
Yes, that's right. So the 1 in 100 is like remains almost unchanged there. And it's also consistent with this extreme value analysis that you did at the beginning. Then we assessed the levels for different climate conditions. So with climate change, we assume different year conditions, so like 2040, 2070, 2100, 2120. And the difference between each of them is usually there's just expected there is more rainfall and more like and a higher sea level, and also like different behavior in losses within the catchment. And so it gives us like that's the base. We see that one the 2.2, but then you can see it's almost like it can increase quite significantly with like for the different climate change scenarios. So on the left, that's when the catchment is like this, and on the right is more, let's say there's no rain and it's just purely the sea level rise getting into like the sea level getting into the lake. So as results, so here is the flood depth. So this is like for the 20%, which is kind of like a 5 year. So it is mostly along the edge of the shoreline. Then for the 1%, you can have a lot more, like more extensive areas that start propagating in a lot more different locations. And then PMF is like pretty much a probable like worst case scenario where like if really the full clouds fall down, that's like where it can start having a lot more impact on this. Regarding velocity, we can, as we expect, it's a big lake, so velocity is actually not that there's not too much velocity in it. It's more like a big basin like filling up, except at the entrance. And then so that was a like 20%. That's a 1%, and that's a PMF. So it just start increasing, but it's generally quite low. We also look into flood hazards. So the flood hazard is a bit of a combination of depth versus velocity. And it's more like the smaller the depth and velocity. So H1 is like low risk. And then as it goes worse, it gets like worse and worse in risk. And so then we map this hazard. So that was 20%. And then we have 1%. Then that start to be a bit more of an issue. So really the key thing is like when it's blue, which is the two blue and light blue, it's like dark blue is usually kind of more safe. Light blue start to be a bit more dangerous for small car. It can start floating. Green can start to impact like children and the elderly and most cars. then when it gets a bit like darker, then it's really like it's dangerous for everything. And then when it gets to the red and yellow, it starts to be structurally dangerous as well. So like this way, like in the 1%, you start to the green area that's a bit more like dangerous for people to walk around is growing, and then for the PMF,
I think that's pretty well done. Move on, please.
Yep. Then we also looked at the flood function. So that's more like checking what's the main floodway, which are like where we don't want it to impact anything, and the flood storage, which is more the area where we want to compensate for any development that is being done, and the flood fringe, which is usually kind of flood free. So in a nutshell. So the red is a floodway where we don't really want to develop anything. Yellow, we just need some consideration, and blue is okay. So that's for the 1%, and for the PMF, it's a bit more. So it's a bit like more impact, obviously. We also looked into the flood emergency response classification. So it's to understand very much, is the access cut and then flooded, or is it flooded first and then the access is cut, or is not flooded? So it's a bit of a diagram like to follow the guideline. And so the worst is when the access is cut first and then there is like the property is flooded. While if the property is flooded first, then people can still have an opportunity to go like to evacuate. So this is more used for evacuation purposes and for the emergency services to guide their to guide evacuation. So here we just see that like most of it, rising road just mean that there is a way to get away. You generally kind of like by car. When it's over and escapes, the dark blue is like it's like you can walk away, and then red means that it's dangerous. It's a low island, and it will come very quickly, and like the access will be cut first. And then again, it's getting worse with the 1% and then the PMF. So in summary, I think when we looked at the number of lots affected, so it's the lots, not the building, but it's like just that some lots are being like impacted by the different events. We see there is like a total of about 34,000 in the whole study area, and there is like for the PMF, there's around like 9,000 and maybe 6,000 in the 1%. And there is a key area which are like Cheetah Point, Tacoma, Tacoma Sus, and Tagarawong, and the entrance behind like the Wilfred Barrett Drive that are key areas which can be impacted by this inundation. And we also looked at just the road closure and a bit of the road closure time. So how quickly it gets closed. So it takes many hours when it's dark, like this kind of dark blue, and the red or dark red means it's very quick. So this is an example of the 20%. So it takes a long time to start closing the road. There's a few areas where it closes a bit faster. Then so 1% it closes faster. And for the PMF, it closes even faster again. So that just to show that the impact on road closure. And then similarly, this is for the duration of how long the roads are closed. When it's white, it could be just a few hours. And as it gets redder and redder, it means that it's really start to get days, and like it's to be a long time. So even in the 20%, there's some area which are closed for quite a while. And then it gets kind of worse with the bigger event, and then the PMF even worse. We looked into that. I won't go through this, but just more, we looked into key infrastructure and described what like such as schools, childcare, and things like that to see the access and the impact. And so that was pretty much in a nutshell all the different aspects. And the next step will be going into public exhibition for this flood study, the draft report, collate the community like the community feedback, and then incorporate this feedback into a final report that will be put for submission, like they will be submitted for adoption by council.
Thank you.
And that's it.
Yep, questions? Yep, Councillor Smith.
Can I just ask, with your climate change slide, is that modelling net increase or net change in rainfall, or is it also modelling change in frequency and significant events, if you understand what I mean?
Yeah, no, I see. Like it kind of does almost both at the same time in a way, because by increasing the rainfall, it just means that like if we look to like in the present, the more frequent event will look rarer. Like if we were looking in present stage, so let's say an event that was like a 5% chance of happening might actually like I just got another way. So it's more like since it's bigger and it would be like a larger event, there would be a bigger rainfall. So like the 1% might, let's say 1 in 100 year might become the equivalent of 1 in a 50 year, let's say. So it would be happening more often, like in equivalent. If we look at the 2 days, 100 might become tomorrow's 1 in like 50. I think, I don't know if it makes sense what I'm saying, but like that's roughly how the frequency evolves. It's more like, because each frequency, like each event will become a slightly different frequency.
Yeah, and just one more quick question. So at this flood study level, you're not looking at any biodiversity issues to do with Tuggerah Lakes, such as threatened species or sharks in the lakes or anything like that?
No, and I think this is more when doing something like estuary management studies and things like that.
Okay.
Yes, we're just focusing on the flood risk and yeah.
Councillor Lamont?
Thanks, Deputy Chair, Chair. I'm a bit concerned that this policy is going out on exhibition, and I really think, and I hope the Chair of the new advisory committee, that the Coastal Estuary Committee, agrees with me. I think it really needs to be evaluated, scrutinised and checked by the advisory committee before it actually goes on exhibition. Like just reading through it, and there's a fair bit to it, 400 plus pages.
You're meant to be asked a question. I don't hear a question.
Sorry?
Meant to be asked.
Okay. So what I'm requesting is, rather than have this policy go on exhibition, which is what I'm assuming the standing committee will be voting on, can it actually wait and go to the advisory committee for that decision? Or not even a decision, but get their feedback and everything. I mean, what I'm saying is, let's make sure the product is perfect before it actually goes out on exhibition. I just think there's too many questions. I mean, I can start asking questions now, but I've probably got a dozen or more. And that's what I'm saying, trying to say. I can give a list of questions to you and have them answered, but I think that the questions have to be addressed before we actually put it out on exhibition. But the better option would be for this draft to actually go to the advisory committee, where it can actually be properly assessed, evaluated, scrutinised and everything, all questions asked and, answers obtained before it, goes out to the public.
Go to the committee.
Okay. I'll take that as a comment. I can't see that we're in the questions to the staff, to the speaker or to the staff.
Okay. Well, I have got.
And then once we get a motion up, then we're into debate, and you're trying to go into debate.
Sorry, if there were questions of the staff then, which we couldn't hear what the director said then. So if there was a question, it'd be good if everyone could hear.
Yeah, councillors, so what we're proposing is the draft go on exhibition, and then because the committee's being set up, the subcommittee, then before we finalise it, there'll be a chance for the committee to review it before we come back to council with the final version. So we're just getting out on exhibition with a draft and getting community feedback.
Chair, can I just suggest we clarify the process for all the councillors, because this is the flood study, it's not the management plan. And so I think there just needs to be some clarity around that.
Sure. As I say, we're currently in questions of either or the staff.
Yeah.
That's where we're at. Okay.
Okay.
So questions. Yes, Councillor Castles.
Just have one question. I'm looking at the draft and obviously having listened to our presentation, which is going to go on. Well, the plan is it will at some point go on public exhibition. Now, I want to ask, I guess, perhaps of the director, whether there will be some sort of summary, simplified version or whatever, because as I think you rightly said, Chair, when we were getting the presentation, I mean, for us, that's not, we may have all got some expertise, but we haven't got that level of expertise. That's why we get people in to do this stuff. We were struggling a bit. We've sort of been going to get our head around it. It's quite clear that when you send it out to the community, there'll be some people in the community who'll have no doubt their head around it. But there would be people who would just be all far too complicated and too hard. How are we addressing that matter when it does eventually, whether it's amended or whatever, go out on public exhibition?
Councillor will have technical information, but we'll also have information that's suitable for any consultation that explains it.
Right.
That explains it that people can understand it at different levels. So there'll be other information that
Okay.
explains it as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, councillor Walsh.
Mr. Chair to
Sorry.
Director. Director Nichols, the information we've heard tonight that's going out on public exhibition, would the committee that we're also voting on community members about later this evening, would that coming to that committee not be appropriate given the sorts of points that Councillor Castle's just made too? Because depending on who the makeup of that ultimate committee, the ultimate makeup of that committee, it would seem to me that there would be any number of possibilities of some of those people being able to provide advice about how it could be presented to the community in a more kind of lay and accessible way.
We'll be able to provide information that's suitable for community consultation so that everyone can understand it and that we sort of have the sort of simple information. They'll have to probably do that for me as well. But the idea is that we get on exhibition, people can then provide feedback and community feedback, and then what we'll be able to do is put that feedback and any potential changes and discuss it with the subcommittee and get the feedback from the subcommittee group before bringing it back to council with a final result. So there'll be lots of opportunity for community feedback, but also for the subcommittee to
potentially make amendments to
that. For sure. We all the feedback from the community as well as the plan will be discussed with the subcommittee before a final plan is brought back to council.
I had a question. Sorry, councillor Stanton was next. I forgot. Sorry, I apologise.
I have two questions probably to Matt. On the flood models that you showed us during the presentation, there was a screen that had maybe 6 or 9 of it. You said the models are of actual floods versus the prediction was a similar model, but the actual flood was worse according to the line consistently across every single time that you've done it. Is that correct or incorrect? Did I misunderstand that?
Was it with the, I'll just go back to it. Sorry. Yeah, previous one, I think that one.
That one.
The one. So like there was like a bit of yeah, there is always a bit of a discrepancy in this because it's always like to get the exact one. It is all this with the rainfall distribution and things like that, what is recorded versus what actually happened. There would always be a bit of discrepancies, but generally the shape is there and the kind of volume of water would be like generally there, and that's why we used this and also the hydraulic model after to get this is like to get the volume and then to put it into the lake, and then that's where we can compare, like that's kind of like the final comparison after is at the hydraulic model where it shows that like it's generally like a good match within just like a few centimeters from what was measured.
Okay, so it's generally there, but the actuals are worse than the predictions consistently.
For a couple of area there, yes, and
I can explain a little bit more. So they're modelling all the inflows coming down at different locations, and it's actually a very good match compared to what you normally get in flood studies. But that's looking at all the flows coming in. But the important one is the next one, where it just shows levels in the lake alone. And the important thing is to get the volume in the lake right. So which we've done a pretty good job of.
Sorry, can I just clarify? So it's not modelling future, it's just comparing actual with the models.
That's right. So
Yeah.
But the model should be the exact or in fact worse, so that you are kind of very prepared as opposed to potentially experiencing worse than what you anticipated.
So that whole exercise is to try to calibrate the model against floods that have happened before, so that we can have confidence that this model is working properly, so that it can actually forecast what is likely to happen in different sort of frequency flood events.
You have a second question,
I
Cassie?
do.
Yep.
Does this model include, you showed the mouth of the channel and how it can be open and closed and everything in between. Does the model show how long it would take for certain volumes of water within the lake to leave the lake pending different rainfalls?
So that's where, yeah, there was some, like, we did this conceptual model of the entrance to kind of how the entrance evolves, and that would kind of define how much flow will go in and out. So we just like, there was a lot of analysis on this to kind of obtain a like a reasonable flow in and out of the entrance, like out of the entrance. And yes.
So this graph here shows the height of the lake over several days. So you can see that it rises over a few days, and then it takes a long time to then slowly go out. And so you can count the number of days that the water is above a particular level. You might be interested in a particular level of the foreshore at a property, so that you can figure out how many days it's inundated.
Is that a typical amount of days? Is that like an average across all the floods? Like, how have you worked out that it takes 5 days, 14 days, 20 days for that lake level to recede back to?
Yeah. You want to answer that one, Matt?
Yeah. So this one it's more based on like based on the head difference between inside the lake and outside the lake. So like in the ocean and in the lake, so where there is possibility to actually get the water with the head different, there will be more flow through the entrance, and there will be more potential for the entrance to scour. And that's why we can see that, like, if there is no scour in the model, it will overshoot everything, and that's why it goes a dotted line. And so that's why we did that. I just showed this example, but there is like we did three different, like the three different events, just to see if, like, if there is like patterns, or if there is like a sort of specific behavior. So to come with an opening behavior that is appropriate to represent the real behavior. So no two event will be the same, but it's like it's all based on this level difference and the amount of like the time it takes, the time that like it is elevated, because the longer it is elevated in the lakes, the more scour potential there will be. Then if the rain stops, then it will still kind of keep going until it recedes. So it might still keep widening for a bit, but it will reduce the rate of like a scour. So that's why we use real event to come up with this process that can be used for statistical event in the future. So then it would just use, depending on the level obtained in the lake, there will be like different kind of response in behavior of the scour of the entrance. And so yeah,
But
that's what we do.
simplistically, the model calculates how much water is going into the lake, and also calculates how much is going out from the lake into the ocean. And so what you're seeing there is directly modeled and representing the actual behavior that you've seen in the lake.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's
Oh, well, no, I'll next, and then I'll go to Lamont.
No, she had her hand up before
Yeah,
you said you wanted to ask a question.
I'm on the committee
Mr. Chair.
tonight, so I'll go and then I'll go to her.
Is that a rule?
Yes, and that's the way it's normally done. You normally go to the non-members last, after the committee have had their say.
Is that actually in our?
No, it's not in our rules, but that's the way it's been happening at every meeting that I've been, and that's where I'm proposing to proceed. And my question is quite simple, actually. So probably to Mr. Sheath. So my understanding out of this is effectively there's no real change from the previous model. That 1% AEP is still the same at 2.7. There's a slight decrease in the smaller floods and a bit of an increase in the PMF flood. So it's not really a significant change.
That's right. Especially for our residential flood planning levels, the most important thing is the 1%, which is the 1 in 100 chance flood. And so it's quite comforting in some ways to see that hasn't materially changed much. And I guess another area of comfort is we've got 100 years of flood record, which gives us an idea of the certain frequencies at different heights of floods, and it checks out pretty well with that too.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lamont.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the questions that I have is we're still operating on a interim management, interim procedures for the entrance opening. So I'm just wondering, are we sort of jumping the gun with this one when we're only looking at an interim for the channel opening? Because I'm just wondering how you can actually, and which the procedure for the channel opening, the entrance moving away from the interim, I don't think it's happening until a CMP is done. So I'm just wondering how that will actually affect what you're talking about with the flood levels in this draft.
Probably when you start looking at the bigger floods, the 1%, which is, you know, sort of the key design, the impact of the interim entrance management plan is probably less. It's going to be more of an impact at your sort of lower, more nuisance type flooding.
So what you're saying is we shouldn't have to worry about, you know, formulating a proper entrance management procedures rather than operating on interim to sort of have a look at this and actually, you know, work out this policy, which is going to lead to policy 2 and 3. It just worries me that this is the precursor to, sorry, not 2 and 3, 3 and 4. If you haven't got the CMP part with the entrance management part sorted out, won't that sort of make it harder to work out 3 and 4 as well, which are the next parts after this?
It'll definitely be useful when you get to the point where you're going to the flood risk management plan and study to have consolidated what your CMP is going to be saying.
And there's so there's no risk like doing this now and working out this flood study now without knowing that. That's what you're basically saying. We don't have to worry about it.
I think it's going to have minimal impact, but also you will reassess. So the flood study, this is to understand the flood behaviour. It is defining some levels. That will be reassessed at the flood risk management plan and study stage. But yeah, I wouldn't expect there would be huge changes, but there is still more work that will be done further on looking at that.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
And we've done sensitivity to look at the impacts of some of those things, and that information is in the report and will allow us to, you know, better understand it when you're looking to the next phases.
Okay, so things like certain roads being mentioned and, you know, which one's going to be impacted first and stuff like that. I'm assuming the community will be, you're expecting the community sort of comment and provide that sort of feedback in the exhibition. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we can move on to the debate. So the recommendation that the committee recommends the council do the review to on public exhibition for a period of 4 weeks. The remover for that?
Chair, I'd probably like to amend that recommendation a little. I haven't got exact words, but if I can just get some clarification that on that. I just noticed in the report, I think it talks about 2 drop-in information sessions. Is that the extent of the face-to-face we're doing during the exhibition period?
That's what we're proposing, yes.
So I'm a little bit concerned that might not be sufficient or might not be sufficient opportunity for people to understand the document that they're looking at. So I guess I'll be guided a little bit by the staff and the director. I mean, so one of my suggestions would be can we do some video explainers that could be uploaded so that people could go and look at those. I'm not necessarily suggesting community workshops at this point. I think that's probably more a bit down the track when the next phase of this process. But I certainly am concerned that 2 drop-in sessions won't be adequate for people getting a grasp of this and knowing what questions to ask, really. I mean, people just won't know what questions to ask. So I'd probably like to amend that recommendation if I have support. That we endorse the thing to be placed on exhibition for a period of 4 weeks, that the exhibition in period include, and again, I'm guided by the staff about whether they have capacity to do some video explainers, whether they could do more than 2.
Councillor, if you'd be happy, I could just commit to increasing the amount of consultation, and we'll investigate things like videos and others and look at other opportunities we can to increase the consultation.
Okay, I'm cautiously going to be guided by you, Director, but I probably would like to know what you've come up with in terms of that.
And, with the increased consultation, we can email councillors and get your feedback before we go on consultation.
Yeah, and then the next point is with the new committee, I do think this by itself needs to be a session with the committee. Like, I am not an expert on anything, but I'd like to probably dig more into that and really understand that. And I have lots of questions that obviously I can't ask here, such as historical data doesn't necessarily predict future data and all those key things, whether it takes into account catchment development, all that kind of stuff. So could I also include that in the recommendation that a dedicated workshop for the new committee to...
We're planning that on the agenda at the moment, Council. There'll be a detailed one. We'll probably get you in for an hour of detail, I think.
Hour's not going to be.
At least, but.
I'm going for an hour now.
We need dinner.
But no, Councillor, it's going to be one of the key things on the subcommittee agenda.
Okay.
It's going to be detailed presentations on this.
Okay, so
So it's probably all right the way it is, isn't it, councillor?
No.
You've got the, you've
I
got
know
the-
better than that. I know better than that.
Trying to simplify things.
So be placed on exhibition. Part B, maybe part 2, that the director advises the committee by email about the detail of the exhibition period, and that the committee notes that there will be a in-depth workshop. For interested councillors.
I think we're going to recommend.
Yep, I'll recommend all of that.
So all of it's got to be the committee recommends.
So the committee recommends and then go down to.
Yeah.
I could just, Councillor, take out that the director, with my name, but that the committee recommends that the councillors are advised by you.
And sorry, just a brief question. On page 19, it references online engagement was undertaken 18th of November 22. Is that correct? 2022? That most recent online engagement that we did, 2022.
That must be a mistake.
And 16th of December 2022. Seems like a long time ago for the online engagement.
Speak to that. I'm confused.
Councillor Merlin, were you seconding that?
The ongoing.
You're providing some words, or Councillor Carson, go.
Yeah.
Councillor, we'll follow. I'll check that up, see if it's correct.
All right, is everyone happy with that? Is there any debate?
Well, it might be to interested councillors, not all councillors as fascinated as.
No, it wasn't that to the. I thought you were saying that was to the committee, the subcommittee.
Well, and interested councillors who might not be on the committee.
My understanding is 2 is to the subcommittee, a workshop with the subcommittee.
Yes, that's what I understood.
Yep.
Okay.
And interested councillors, fine. Anyone obviously can go anyhow.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, any more debate on that? No? All right, I'll put it. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Unanimously. Thank you. Just under an hour.
Thanks, Matt and Bronson.
Yes, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening. Bye.
Up to item 1.7, the review of the open pile burning policy.
Sorry, the heritage, did that get?
It's been
deferred
referred.
Oh, okay. Did we tell the staff?
It was done early on.
Got another one there.
Yes, Smith, we voted on deferred.
Oh, okay, sorry.
First item.
I just huge stuff over there thinking, nothing exciting happening.
This is,
This is really for questions, I think.
yeah, this will just be only for questions if you have an open pile burning. Shan's got 2 or 3 slides if you want to.
All right, well, given there's going to be a few questions, give us a couple of slides. Probably a good idea to set the scene.
This controls.
See if you can do it in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet. Waiting for them to go to the slides. I don't want to have to click through 17 of them. There we go. Okay, so every 5 years, we're required to do a review of the open pile burning policy under the legislation, which is the Protection of Environment Operations Act. So we've carried out this review. And the open pile burning policy enables residents in certain locations to carry out the burning of dead and dry vegetation for maintaining their properties. So this is where people don't have your green waste bin service or a serviced collection of green waste at all. So mostly your rural areas. There's a number of conditions that are deemed approval. So we don't issue approvals as such. There's a number of requirements that the residents wishing to undertake a burn have to meet before they can carry it out. They can only do it during certain times of the year, and that's based on fire conditions and requirements. And they do have to get an approval from the Rural Fire Service to carry out the burn. As part of our review, we consulted with the Rural Fire Service, and we've aligned this revised policy to align with their open pile burning policy. And that included a number of conditions being added to our policy. So there's an additional 4 conditions that we've slotted in. And I guess the feedback from RFS will be that this will enable them to better work with our policy and have a consistent approach to the burning in those locations. As part of our review, we looked at our customer requests over a 3-year period. We were interested to see if we were receiving a significant number of complaints in relation to people carrying out these burns. Surprisingly, majority of our complaints related to the Jillaby and Colnera areas, and most of them were in relation to the materials that people were burning. One of the conditions of the deemed approval is that they only burn dead and dry vegetation. So no tyres, no plastics, no household waste, no food and vegetable waste or anything like that. It's just vegetation. And it has to be dead and dry. So anything green that's just fallen off a tree cannot be burnt. It needs to wait, allowed to dry out, and then lit. So the compliance activities around that sort of, I guess, complaints is that we would then go and look at what they've burnt. We review the evidence that the RFS have received from a complaint that they've attended, and then we would take enforcement action in relation to that. Of the total 825 customer requests over 3 years, only 65 of them related to open pile burning. Majority of those complaints relate to other smoke nuisances in our residential areas. So it was not about, most of the complaints were not about open pile burning and the impacts that they may or may not be having. So just looking at some of that stats in relation to the issues of non-compliance. So we were looking at people burning of rubbish. Piles were too large, so there is restrictions on the size of the pile, and that's to ensure that the property owner can control it and it doesn't get out of control and cause a fire hazard. And then a lot of the other minor complaints there were sort of more individual type scenarios that weren't of a majority complaint that were causing a major nuisance. So consulting, looking at all this information, we updated our conditions. We aligned the policy to be in the new council corporate template for policies and made some minor changes and updates in wording, but very minor changes in relation to that. So just, I don't want to go through all of the conditions, I'll keep it short, but I'll just flag it's only on certain zoned lands, over 4,000 square metres, dead and dry vegetation, looking at pile diameter and I guess material diameter. I'm just going to find the additional conditions there, 14.17, burning must only be undertaken between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. so that we're not causing ongoing nuisances to neighbours where they might have a pile smouldering for days on end. So it needs to be extinguished after 10 p.m. and can't be relit before 7 a.m. So they were consistent with RFS. And there's a couple more. It was about just burning dead and dry vegetation. It must be dry. It can't be left wet or compacted because that creates more of a smoke nuisance. I did have them highlighted, but they must have dropped off this particular slideshow. So that's 4.7. And only one pile burning at any point in time. So you can't have 6 piles going because how can one person manage that? So that's an RFS requirement. They want to know that you've got full control of your pile burn when you're carrying it out. Any questions?
Councillor Castles.
Yes, one of the aspects obviously is from looking at the draft policy, but also I guess certainly from councillor's point of view, some emails that we have received from community members, etc., is in regards to the health aspects of people, you know, breathing in the smoke, you know, if it's their neighbour's property, whatever it might be. Now, obviously there are requirements around the health issues and the burning of materials. And I mean, obviously you've highlighted some of those about what you're supposed to be burning and not supposed to be burning. But if there is a complaint that comes in about that type of thing, who goes out and sort of, is there any options to go out and do that kind of testing of what's acceptable in terms of the actual smoke that's coming out of things in terms of a health issue, or how does that work?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different aspects. So there is air quality monitoring that's undertaken by the New South Wales EPA at specific locations. It's not covering the entire coast. I think there's one location up at Summersby. So they monitor air quality every day and report on that. In relation to a specific complaint, if it was an ongoing nuisance, such as a wood fire heater, for example, we do go out at certain times. We look at the smoke that's causing, we look at how the smoke goes into the air, where it sits, where it lingers, and what sort of impact that is having on it. And that would be an offensive smoke nuisance test. And then we would take action on that if that was the case. Pile burns are a little bit more infrequent. They're not something that people tend to do days on end. It might be a one-off pile burn. There are some instances where they might have 6 piles and they'll do them over subsequent weekends. And if that were the case, we would consult with them and look at wind direction and what the environmental conditions are at the time and how they can manage it better.
And is that made, sorry, I've just because I, funnily enough, haven't got a whole draft policy in my brain, but is that actually sort of that kind of information covered within the draft policy, those kind of examples that you just gave me? Or
they're not in the policy because we try and stay clear of examples in the policy. Right. So conditions that we've outlined hope to cover that.
Okay.
One of the actions is that when we do get complaints, we then go and respond and investigate that complaint, and that's in our internal procedures, not part of the policy.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. So a couple of things. So what have been the outcomes of those complaints?
Look, in certain circumstances, we've taken enforcement action. So whether it be a warning letter, if there's been a repeat, we have issued fine or 2. There's been very few that have been an ongoing nuisance. Most of the time when our fire brigade usually attend on the Saturday, we receive the information back, we contact the person causing the issue, and we give them the education approach initially. If they're don't pass that test of, you know, being compliant and understanding the reasons why, we would then look at what other action would circumstances. So yes, we have issued fines for non-compliance. Majority of people don't necessarily realise that there is a smoke nuisance, even though they're complying with the conditions, but it's the environmental conditions at the time that might be blowing the smoke in their neighbour's direction.
And how many pole burns are undertaken each year?
We don't have the stats because it's a deemed approval approach. We don't issue the actual approval. We don't have the resources to go and do those approvals and that issuing. It is any number. I don't have those stats.
So I think when this came to council probably, 4 or 5 years ago, staff undertook that they would track that.
So we track the complaints and
But not well, I mean, it's a little bit meaningless.
Yeah.
To an extent. I note in the,
because we don't issue the approval.
staff insisted they had a way of knowing, I think through RFS, they swore black and blue that they would know that. So I noticed in the report that it talks about input from a few different organisations. So is that any of that input included or that feedback?
Yeah, so in the report, and RFS was the input that we received.
Yeah.
And that's where we made some adjustments to the policy itself.
Okay, and my last point, Chair, is and I know I'm not going to get much leeway with this, but one of the issues that other councillors sometimes identify is the key threatening process of removing woody debris, which obviously is in conflict with this. So could I'll move an amendment to that the draft policy be amended to include reference to the key threatening process and that educational material be provided around that. And obviously that won't get through, but I'll give it a go. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Mott.
Yeah, thank you. One of the questions that I do have is why there was no external community consultation undertaken with the policy. I know it was just a review, but yeah, I'm just wondering why we haven't done any. I know you've relied on inputs such as RFS and complaints, internal stats that council has, but why isn't there any external consultation to actually come up with the review or look at the review?
So the intention of the report today is to put it to the committee to get it endorsed to go out for public consultation.
Okay, so what I'm asking is before we get to exhibition, why aren't we consulting with the community before it actually goes on exhibition?
So I can't answer that. We're proposing to put it on public exhibition to get community feedback. We've prepared the revisions with the expert agencies and expert input, and we've reviewed the issues that have come up in the last 12 years. We're now proposing to go to the community and get feedback on that before making decisions. So that I can't answer.
Okay, because I've had a gentleman that actually initially contacted Rick Hart back in 23, and it was pretty much told back then that the policy is being reviewed and to wait until it's reviewed, and then that they'll be looking at his concerns. This gentleman contacted me in June this year, and I did put a councillor request through on his behalf regarding his concerns and the health risks and everything. But once again, he was pointed out to the fact that the policy's being reviewed and wait for until that. So he sort of brought issues to council on, at least 2 separate occasions, and would have hoped that his concerns would have been addressed in the review, but they haven't been. But now he's being told, well, you're going to have an opportunity to do that with the exhibition. So once again, I'm sort of asking why can't we sort of get these policies looked at and, improved before they go on exhibition rather than waiting for an exhibition?
I'm happy to answer.
That's right. I don't have anything further that we're going to add, Councillor Mott.
Okay, well, would the chair mind if I just read the statement from the client, the resident regarding
that by email? I've seen it. I imagine the rest of the councillors have seen it. I don't think it'll add any benefit, and we are short of time. Got a long way to go yet tonight.
Okay, so I'm assuming that's a no, I can't.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions? Yes, councillor Wash.
Can I ask about areas that have curbside pickup, but where residents still do burns anyway?
So they're not permitted to under the policy. And so the neighbours should be then, I guess, reporting them if they do carry it out illegally. I guess there is some ability for people to have a backyard
Barbecue.
social fire barbecue.
Yes.
But they can't have a pile burn as such.
Yeah, so they are pole burns, and so that's what I'm asking. And again, relating it back to, particular health risks. So where there's green bin curbside pickup.
They should be using that
should be
green
using-
bin, and if the volume is too large, they can take it to the landfill, and they're usually within very close driving distances, or you can book one of the 6 bulk curbside collections that everyone has available to them.
With this policy going on exhibition, that's really clear.
Yes.
Okay. So if we were to assume that the policy, even with it being clear, still doesn't address the issue of people who are doing burns, then, can there be some, well, I guess wait and see what comes back. But I was going to say, can there be some communication method from council around encouraging those constituents who live in areas with curbside pickups, who are still experiencing neighbours with doing open burns, to make those complaints, and that they get followed up in that way.
And we've got a series of planned educational media releases throughout the year that address things like that, such as smoke pollution and nuisance. So, or we can include in those particular smoke campaigns would be about pile burns only in certain locations.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, the recommendation is to put it on public exhibition.
Could I'm going to move the slightly on that it be on exhibition with an amendment to include reference to the key threatening process. And sorry, I didn't explain that for councillors, but there's under the various environmental state and federal laws, they have key threatening processes. So processes that threatened the survival of threatened species and so on. And removal of woody debris is considered to be a key threatening process. So, sorry, amend the policy to include a reference to the key threatening process, removal of woody debris, with some explanation to discourage unnecessary.
So you're asking for that?
Yeah.
Goes on exhibition.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The draft includes reference to key threatening process of woody debris, not weeds, with some explanation to discourage unnecessary removal of timber through the pole burning policy.
The director, is that? Not reasonable, I'm not going to say that. Do you see that that could be implemented or not? I'm not sure it's practical, I suppose, is what I'm saying.
If what we're talking about is putting a sort of a text box in there with sort of guidance information, we could do that.
Okay.
I'd say that I don't have any information on this, so to be able to vote on, I don't know what woody debris is. I don't know what these things
I
are.
just looked up, it's complex, it's pests and weeds and that lost and bacteria listing.
I think they're all the key threatening processes. This particular one says logs left on the ground provide habitat for threatened species. Okay. So it's a threatening process to remove all those logs.
Rural areas, like this is obviously related.
Well, in all areas, yeah, in all areas.
In the city of Sydney. With a
Logs
tree on
provide habitat. Threatened frog, maybe. Threatened worm.
Key threatening.
Never know.
Key threatening processes are managed through strategic.
It was moved by councillor Smith, and I think seconded by I was going to say, I wasn't quite sure, councillor Welch, all right.
I can give you a list if you like.
Are there worms on that?
If it's only something like a text box, I can live with that outcome.
Like a tree falling in the middle of like.
All right, any further debate?
Tree.
I'll put it, all those in favour? Carried unanimously.
Should have put the sharks in. To mention the sharks.
Okay, we're on to
Trap road.
the planning proposal at Green Parade, Lungara.
That was actually very funny.
We don't have a presentation, but we have the manager here if councillors have questions.
I'll slam the door.
Oh, hang on. The numbering's gone again. Oh, sorry, it's my stop. My fault. No, we did 1.9.
1.9.
It is 1.9. I was right, yes.
Just ask me if you need any help.
Yeah, thank you, councillor.
Yeah.
You can be the assistant chair.
That's right, the assistants.
Okay, so the recommendation is there to basically go ahead with it. And I guess my reading of it just says that this was originally going to be part of, I think, the shopping centre at Watervale. When it got downsized to like a couple of shops, then this needs to be changed into residential.
Can I ask a question? Shen?
Sure.
So look, I'm pretty okay with it in theory because we're going from E1 and MU1 zones to residential. But just the aerial does look like it's vegetated. So is that natural vegetation or is it regrowth? And if, yeah, that's the first question.
Bit of both. It, some of it was a former landfill site that's been remediated as well. And some of the Watervale Town Centre site is covered by a fire certification application that was done and the land was rezoned that lasts for 25 years and that site's included.
Okay, and does the planning proposal retain any corridors or anything? Or is that, is it just flatten the whole lot?
Yeah, as part of the biocertification process.
Is there any potential, is there any value in trying to retain a corridor, any kind of corridor? Because it links to adjacent lots. Is there any?
No, I guess because the biocertification's already.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay, all right, I accept that. Yeah. I'll just mention the parts again before we do.
All right. Recommendation is to proceed. So I'm going to move that. I'm sure councillor Smith doesn't want to move it.
No. I'd like to,
Councillor Merlin?
think I could.
I'm still a bit annoyed it's not commercial, to be honest, but because we've got a lot of residential there, we haven't created a same job yet. But yeah, I'd rather not move it.
I'm going to move it. I'll move it. Is there a seconder?
I'll second.
Second, all right. Moved by councillor.
Where are you?
By councillor Merlin. Is there any more debate? Not, I'll put it and then I'll ask those in favour to raise your hand. Councillor Welsh, councillor Stanton, councillor Eaton, councillor Castle, councillor Merlin, against. Councillor Smith, are you against?
No, I can't, but I've just retained a bit of a corridor. I'd be happy to support.
And a few shops.
And a few shops.
There's a Woolworths going in potentially, hopefully next door, a Woolworths shopping centre.
Somewhere a shark can visit.
All right, I'll declare that carried.
Make it commercial.
Okay, next one is 1.10, local planning panel, submissions policy. Is there any questions on this? We've discussed a number of times, so I
It has
guess.
been, but I think we should still make the normal noises.
Yeah, I'm not assuming that this is going to be unanimous.
In page 40.
Wait till you get to it.
Is the.
So there is one question in terms of, this obviously changes the number of objections need to be made for it to be referred to the planning panel. What numerical effect of DAs do you expect it will have over a year?
Question, councillor. Andrew Roach is here and he'll answer that question.
I sort of anticipated this question, so this afternoon. Last year, there were 48 DAs that went to the local planning panel.
Yeah.
If this policy had been in place rather than the current 10 unique submissions at the moment, it would have affected 13 applications. So about one application per meeting.
I divided it by 4.
No, I guess the unknown, if I'm speaking frankly, is that if the target's 20, do some people then go around and secure 20? Because that is something that community groups can sometimes do. My observation is that applications generally garner a very small number of, 4 or 5 submissions, the immediate neighbours, or they go the other extreme, they get 50, 100, 300. There's not that many that are in the middle barrier. Okay, thank you. All right, recommendations there. Councillor Mullen. All right, we'll get, I think Councillor Mullen, you're moving the recommendation?
I'll make the mayor's recommendation.
Yeah. Second? I'll second it.
Well, I'll move my amendment that the policy retain.
May not be an amendment, probably like.
Okay, that we take into consideration the submissions, the majority of submissions, and amend the policy to retain the 10 unique objections trigger.
That'll be a foreshadowed motion, Councillor Smith.
Well, I will foreshadow that, but I will just say that I think it's important that we net the sharks out there through this policy.
Thank you.
So therefore, I think we should retain the trigger of 10.
Thank you. Any further debate? I mean, we've had this debate a few times.
I do oppose this motion. I know, and I think the staff member for his understanding of where the issues were and his pre-preparation. But despite the fact it's not huge numbers, I think it is a matter of principle that we actually listen to the community. And when there are those number of objections, it doesn't mean that the GA is rejected. It just means that it has the additional scrutiny of the planning panel. And I think it is a retrograde act in relation to a council that wishes to be more responsive and to the community and more transparent. So completely contrary to all the principles we adopted in our community strategic plan to go backwards and say that we will require more members of the community object before we actually listen to them. So I strongly object to this, and I will oppose it at the council as well, and I give you notice of that. And I do ask the councillors here, in light of our community strategic plan, to rethink your position. This is important, not for just what it does, but what it represents us as being. And I strongly suggest you rethink your position and not proceed with this.
I will just speak briefly.
Sorry, before you close.
Yeah, sorry,
Just a quick question.
You can have the right.
I asked it to the previous director. If this gets through tonight, all objections are still listened to.
Yes, or the determination of it is determined by council staff, but they'll have to consider the objections before making a determination.
So whether it's 2 objections or 20, all those objections are listened to, correct?
Yes.
What's the point motion?
So it goes to the trigger is to go to the local planning panel to make the determination.
It takes long to determine an application.
And when we did the official discussion, there was a cost impediment
There's costs.
about escalation to the local planning panel and time delays as well.
And also, it increases the likelihood of deferred.
Chair?
No, we clearly didn't. I offered him that.
No, you offered, he took up your right of reply and spoke. I think the debate's closed, you need to put it.
All right, I'll take it.
I think it is worth countering Councillor Milne to some degree. I mean,
Hang on, you got to have it both. It's closed. Sorry, Councillor Smith, you've been dudded by your comrade.
between a decision behind closed doors and a decision
He's
in
done that.
daylight in a public forum, and the community, this is just going to lead to the community trying to game the system, which is a ridiculous outcome. Their concerns should be legitimately addressed and considered by the local planning panel if it warrants that, if they reach that 10 genuine objections. So I think it's appalling that we're trying to shut that down.
All right, I'll put it, all those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Stanton, Councillor Milne, Councillor Eaton, against Councillor Castles, Councillor Smith, Councillor Walsh. I
It's
declare-
spirit on right.
1.11, the pattern book. So the report's there. I don't know if you want to, any questions on it?
So is,
It's just, I asked for this report just because this was in the media recently.
no, I think it's very interesting. I just want to be absolutely clear. If the pattern book pattern designs are utilised and it lodges a DA, it's deemed a complying development and doesn't have to be assessed. Is that correct?
It'll be a complying development, so it goes through a different route. It's not a DA, it's a complying development, and as long as it's consistent with those pattern book designs,
Yeah.
as long and it's permissible, it's got to be permissible in the zone. So the use has to be permissible in the zone. It has to be consistent with the pattern book, and then it could be a compliant development that could be approved by a certifier.
So, sorry, just to clarify. So I don't know, there was some other issue, they were removing trees, but neighbours objected, something sort of nothing to do with the design. What happens then?
There's a whole range of reasons it will be excluded from a compliant development. So for example, if it's bushfire affected or flood affected, it wouldn't be able to be done as a compliant development. There's things about tree removal, it would be not required. There's a whole heap of things that would mean if you've got to, if you trigger those, it'd have to be a DA and actually put into council instead of compliant development.
And it might help because single housing and some dual occupancies already can be done as compliant.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
So all this really does is that it's a standard plan.
Oh, no, I get what it is, but I was just trying to get
But in terms of the complying development, it really doesn't have.
yeah, the minor, the sort of minor nuances of it. But I did notice that most of that they are all medium density housing. I went through.
There's manor houses, which is sort of 2 units.
Yeah, they're all
Units.
multi.
There's terraces, which are blocks and others, but so it's those. There's a second stage of the work that the government are doing, which is about using the same type of pattern book for 6-storey development.
Yes,
but that's not what this is yet. They haven't proceeded with that, even though they are working on that.
Councillor Milne.
Yeah, second time tonight, I've applauded the state government for a great initiative. This
I get ticket.
Yeah, I know. This year as well can really start addressing housing issue on the Central Coast. It's definitely one of the pieces. There's just some great examples in Sydney, especially in Western Sydney, where pattern book developments have been used and used really well. If you go around places like Paddington, everyone raves about developing.
Even about turn of the century.
Yeah, well, but they also all pattern book design, right? So one of the major advantages I've seen, and the reason I asked our chair to raise it was the opportunity to start addressing affordable housing, because one of the applications of pattern book design is multiple dwellings on the same block of land.
It's exactly
So, and done really well. So thank you to the director for bringing it back. I hope our council proactively encourages this type of development in the right areas. And if we're looking at new land releases, maybe it's something that we can encourage at the council as well.
Councillor Castles.
Yeah, probably leading on from Councillor Newland. Just a question in regards to, I mean, obviously I realise it's a state government initiative, if you like. Is there any possibility that as a Central Coast Council we can, also promote or provide information to the community regarding the housing pattern book sort of process, because as we know, that's one of our major issues is housing, affordable housing, et cetera, et cetera. And, as we know, a lot of people see information from their local council, which they don't necessarily see if it's a state government. Might be in their letterbox, they might follow, Facebook, whatever they're doing. That's not what they're doing. Any thoughts on that, Director, as to where do we have that wriggle room to go somewhere with that?
Yes, so our pre-DA service has got across pathway and where
Okay.
it would apply. And they're providing information when approached. So what's happening is a lot of people are starting to approach council and wanting to know how this could work.
Okay,
And our pre-DA staff are being able to explain it to them. So that's probably the biggest thing we can do. We'll also, when we're doing a developer forum in October,
Yeah.
also be able to sort of highlight it as well.
okay, thank you.
And just before we close,
Did you have a question?
Oh, it's just mulling, I'm mulling.
Okay.
while there's mulling going on, one of the great advantages at the moment, a young home buyer can buy one of these packages designs for $1. Right, so they still have to build the house. Well, instead of paying $20 to an architect, there's opportunity.
Won't often fit on a block probably. Look, it's a good initiative. I'm not against it.
It's required for the designs aren't that large, if you have a look. I think 350. So it's pretty much become the almost standard size.
All right. Recommendation, somebody want to move that then? Councillor Merlin? Yes, would you mind? Seconder? Councillor Walsh, I think. All right, Councillor, all right, I'm just trying to get you on the books, Councillor Walsh. Okay, Councillor Castles, I'll put that, all those in favour? Carried unanimously. Okay, regulatory statements, item 112. Any questions on this one?
So, councillors, it's we've identified. I suppose the first thing is we do a range of general regulatory activity. What this identifies is areas that we put for this year a bit of extra focus on. It doesn't mean we weren't doing activity in the range of areas. It's in addition to what we normally do for regulation.
Yep.
To Director. So is this the plan for just the next 12 months? Was it ongoing? I've just noticed in regards to the enforcement of illegal camping, for example, we've ramped up the effort in regards to voter enforcement. Will that be ongoing or are we just planning to do that?
Yeah, so we do this each year. So basically do this for this financial year, and we'll come back to you for the next financial year to reconfirm the priorities. And many of those priorities may remain the same, but each year you'll be able to renew this.
Yes, go on, Councillor Smith.
Ask a question. I note in the comments that one of the feedback was about tree removal. Has that been picked up in the draft policy or not? I can see it talks about illegal clearing, but to me that seems to be large scale native vegetation land clearing. Does it include tree removal?
Ask the manager to answer that.
So what we've done with that feedback is that they will be allocated for consideration for next year's priorities. And we'll look at adding that as a next year priority.
Okay, well, I just think that gives 12 months for everybody to go down and cut their tree without it being a priority for enforcement. So I'd like to see the policy amended to include illegal tree removal. And my other question is encroachment on public land. Again, I realise I think it's large scale that this priority is talking about. Can I just ask, when we see signs on the side of the road or attached to trees that are obviously advertising for businesses, are they required to have a permit to be able to do that?
So I think it depends, and Andrew may be able to assist on some of this, but it depends on whether it is on private or public land, and whether or not it falls under the SEP exempt and complying development if it is on private property. So certain signage is exempt from development consent and is permissible, but putting them into a tree obviously isn't the right avenue to take. Affixing them to a more suitable solution. So I guess with this regulatory priority statement, it doesn't mean that we're going to drop off any other compliance reports of compliance or non-compliance that we receive. We'll still be reviewing and investigating it. We're just going to, I guess, have some proactive initiatives to focus on some of these priority areas in addition to our normal compliance work that we do.
I thank you for that comment, but I do recall your presentation previously, and it did seem to suggest that we're stretched, and so we need these priorities because we don't have a lot of staff.
Yeah.
So I'd probably, and look, I'm happy to follow up on that one, but I would like some clarification. And if it is unlawful, whether that can, I can follow up, but whether that would come under that encroachment on public land.
So where it is on public land and it was causing an environmental or public safety concern, such as putting nails into trees to affix a sign, then yes, we would be taking action.
Sorry, but even, and look, I feel I'm in two minds about this because good on businesses to have a go. But if they're the ones that are putting out their sign unlawfully and the other businesses aren't doing it unlawfully, then it's an unfair competitive advantage. And, you know, maybe that's not my, well, it's not my priority. So anyway, so look, I will follow up with that, but I would amend this to include illegal tree clearing within the regulatory priorities for this document.
You're taking one out of that one.
Yeah, that's right. That's the problem I have.
You don't have to, but I'm just asking if that's the motion.
I think it's the same discussion of just having about priorities.
Yeah,
We're
priorities.
stretched. Yeah, I think we can ensure that enforcement does happen.
I am sure the director would allocate resources as required, but I would rather have illegal tree clearing in the policy rather than us just have a conversation and say, oh, that's not a priority for the next 12 months.
And we get approached by community members pretty routinely with serious concerns about.
I'm not saying it should be, I'm not saying, but we can.
Well, the director will allocate resources.
Councillors, if I can, obviously we have X amount of resources. If you want to add an additional priority for this year, we would make sure we would address that within our existing resources. So it's up to councillors whether you want to add an additional activity in the priorities.
Richard.
So I will move that
We
amendment.
don't have additional resources.
You can
So
put the
we-
amendment.
Two letters for each.
Yes. I'll move that motion with that addition. And seconder. Let's get voted down anyway.
Don't be defeatist.
Well, I've been here, what, now 8 months?
Councillor Walsh, were you seconding that or not?
I was surprised.
Clear.
Sorry, yes, I'm
Always
sorry.
have to, you always have to do every.
No, I got the impression you
Get
were.
your land safely.
Can I add regulatory of nets for,
Right?
sorry, I'm being silly now.
That and how we can
Yeah,
include it. But let's just add it.
All right, well,
Sorry, was number 3?
Oh, no, it's illegal tree clearing and I will follow up separately about the signage issue and see what is and what is.
It's easy to find people if they're
Well,
advertising.
it's usually got their phone number on it.
They do. Sometimes even an email address, very helpful.
So just to, sorry, councillor Smith, so I was seconding around the illegal tree removal.
Yeah,
Not the signage.
Yeah, no, that's all it is. That's all it is.
Yeah. I think I'll move the staff recommendation as an amendment if there's a seconder for that.
Oh, direct opposite?
No.
It was the other time.
Because it's the same apart from.
I think it's a foreshadowed motion, Chair. I think
Good try, Kath.
consistency with your previous rulings of this meeting.
Good try, but I disagree. Well, I mightn't get a seconder, so it won't matter. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? No, okay. All right, I'm just for a second.
You should have saved yourself by foreshadowing.
This is quicker. All right, I'll put that then. All those in favour? Unanimously.
There you go, see?
Leap in the air, knowing your land safely.
No statistics, item 113. Anyone wants to ask a question?
Just wanted to recall, we've had a discussion at the Economic Development Committee where there was some, many actually, but wanting to ensure that the statistics are collected in a way that we can actually tell how long they're in the sausage factory, or the average time from when the DAs enter to when they exit. And I'm just trying to see whether that's available.
And council, you'll need to define that because there's many different definitions of what a sausage factory is.
So so you've got the growth calendar day, so that is from the average number of days from when it enters the system to when it
You need to define entering the system.
application to council.
Yeah, so councillor got the mean, so the average, and the median, so the central point, yeah.
One thing that is excluded, and I think that often has an impact on people, is that the time doesn't start to run till everything that's required is submitted. And very frustrating because
No, what happens is,
Right.
what happens is it gets lodged in the planning portal.
Yeah.
And staff do the initial assessment within 40 days.
40 days.
Within 40 days.
Yeah.
And if it hasn't met the minimum statutory requirement for what needs to be submitted, then it's sent back and they're asked to do those. But when they then get submitted, there'll be a much more detailed review so there is a lot of information that comes after it's been lodged as well. But we are trying to get to the point where applications are more complete before they get lodged.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it can't be assessed if it isn't all there. And I guess if we can strive to sort of let people know as soon as possible so they're not sitting wondering for a long time. Good. But it's 14 days. Is that a council requirement that you're within 14 days, or is that a statutory
I'll
requirement?
jump over to maybe ask Andrew, who's better at this. So,
Things have changed a little bit because of the introduction of the New South Wales planning portal, which doesn't exactly function the way that the Environmental Planning as an Assessment Act is worded. But fundamentally how it works, like the director said, is the application is submitted on the portal. So you put your application on the portal, council has a statutory 14 days to review what you've submitted. And the purpose of that initial review is if your application meets the very basic requirements in the regulations, the application lodged, then the application becomes lodged at that point. And that's the start date of the assessment. The way I describe is in the old days, back when I was a little bit younger, I used to probably walk into the counter and go, I want to lodge my application. And the planner at the
I remember those days.
I do too. The planner at the counter will go, I'm sorry, you're missing your statement on X, Y, and Z. And so the portal has sort of replaced that process with a technological process. The department does actually track council's assessment times it takes from the date of submission to the date of lodgement in the portal. Some councils were actually gaming the system. So some councils would literally have stuff lodged on the portal and go, we're not looking at it, like for literally months. Our average return time's like 8 or 9 business days, so a week or two. But the assessment time starts at that point when it's lodged, and then the end date is the determination date, the day the decision's made. Be that the signature by staff or the outcome from the local planning panel or what have you.
So the lodgement date is when the basic requirements.
Correct.
And you're saying that it's average 8 or 9 days before
I
that.
can double check exactly what they are, but it's a really short period.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good to hear. But it would be, if you could let us know, or let me know, at least I'm interested.
I guess the challenge with it is one of the issues that not just us, but all councils face is that, as Councillor Eaton said in the last meeting, the planning system has become so complex and convoluted that when people submit stuff on the portal, they often miss stuff because there's such a difficult process. And I do have sympathy for people that work in the development sector and consulting world. They might have had 20 or 30 years experience, but it's become so complex to get your application across the line. But from our point of view, we need good quality applications because poor quality applications go like this in the system, which doesn't help anybody's time.
I'm more concerned with the people who aren't the professionals.
Yeah, look, there's a couple of things there. Planning's become so convoluted that almost nobody is capable of lodging their own applications these days. It's absolutely true. Like back in the day, most people would do house extensions, swimming pool, even their own house application by themselves. There will be very, very few applications that we get that are come from a mum and dad doing it themselves. We do have a separate team of essentially building surveyors that deal with those applications, and they turn them around really quickly, but they're also much more responsive to the mum and dads. But there's very few of that mum and dad stuff at the moment. It's pretty much, if you want to build a pool, you'll go to a company and they'll have somebody that does their applications for them because it is so complex.
Thank you.
Just some positive feedback. For 6 months, I've been asking for a rolling monthly 12-month total.
There it is.
It is there, thank you, and the trend looks encouraging. So thank you to the director and the staff because we're hearing that in the community and that negativity is slowly starting to fade. So thank you for the hard work.
I'd agree. I think, Please pass on to your staff that, you know,
I think there's some good and
it's not perfect, but it's a lot better and you're going in the right direction. So well done.
I think that backlog coming down is the positive news from this last financial year. I think the converse of that is that the assessment times have gone up because we're clearing the decks of a lot of old applications. But target very much for this year is now that we've got numbers down and the backlog down is to start to work on that assessment times and then some better decision making on the tail end of that.
Can I ask you one question? Yeah, if you can't or are not in a position to answer it, I understand.
Is there a technical planning question? I may not know you.
Sort of. If you were going to set a criteria to improve the processing of DAs or to measure improvement, what do you think is the most important criteria to look at?
Oh, look, this is a challenging one. We've actually developed as part of the improvement program internally, essentially an end-to-end best case scenario. How long would each step take in an ideal world? And we're trying to work to, and that's everything from lodgement, dealing with government agencies, internal referrals and all that sort of thing. If I was to pick a couple of things, one, I would say good quality applications. Applications come in and there's a lot of referrals and processing required. And then if you go out and talk to government agencies and then an application requires amendment, you have to do that again. It's a lot of work and time built in that. So the one thing I would say is really good applications lodged by industry up front.
I was actually thinking more about how, as a council, do we measure improvement in the processing of DAs? What if we want to
measure?
Yeah, so if we want to work out, are we improving? I mean, I know we've looked at the statistics, but is there, what is you think? And I know it's a really hard question and you can go away and think about it if you like, but if you were just, if you wanted to measure and say we are doing better,
yeah,
what do we measure?
It's really interesting. This is just me speaking off the cuff, but the government in particular are very obsessed with processing times.
Yeah.
And a lot of councils in discussion with the government saying making things go fast doesn't necessarily make it good. I think probably one of the things would be the quality of the development comes out the end, or even getting development to a point where you can get it across the line. Most councils have said to government, we can make stuff go fast, we just refuse it or we approve rubbish. So I guess probably balance between assessment times and the quality of development at the end, or even if the development happens, a development that gets approved but is not viable is not good for the developer, it's not good for the community. I don't know if there's one single measure.
Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, so you might have to take that online with it.
I'm just saying, I mean, obviously
I don't think I know what you're asking.
to come through the director, but I'm just saying if you have any ideas, or really the director has any ideas, I'd be really interested.
Thank you.
I've wrestled with that for a while.
Okay, so the recommendation is there. That's the report. We're going to move that. Councillor Walsh, Councillor Merlin. I'll put it, all those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you. We dealt with planning proposal statistics, offshore stand nourishment task force. Any questions on that? It's now, by the way, it's nearly 9 o'clock.
Can I just, I mean, thank you for the report, and I'm encouraged that it sounds like it might be heading in a positive direction. Is that how the staff feel about that conversation?
Yep.
Answer any questions?
Well, it talks about the Reconstruction Authority with a study or an investigation due to be finished by May 2025, but you guys got an update in May 2025. Is that correct? Is that
You'd be finished in June. So
okay.
an update in the last.
Delivered by mid 2025. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Still.
So we understand the draft report has been delivered by the consultant to the government and has been reviewed, and the consultant is updating that. And the Reconstruction Authority is scheduling meetings with councils to then update them. Comes to that study. So yeah, we plan to the next, but the subcommittee of the Coastal Estuary and Floodplain Management Committee provide a further update on the outcomes of.
Okay. We don't have a meeting yet.
So, I mean, it's the
This is a slide.
30th, yes.
it's like
30th of September. Okay. All right.
September, around September, isn't it?
Yeah, we're still working on the date. It may be in early October now. Yep.
Okay.
All right, the recommendations there. Somebody want to move that?
I'll move.
Thank you, Councillor Smith, Councillor Stanton. All right, Councillor Castles, was it?
Yeah. Oh, well, yes, and an item, I guess.
Castles. I'll put that, all those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 16, no, we're moving over that. We're coming back to that. 117, Gosford Memorial Park Library. I think we've got a brief presentation on this. I'm sorry. We've run so late that if we could make it as brief as possible, please.
Councillors, I can start while we're waiting for the presentation to come up. It's very. So Gosford Memorial Park and Rotary Park are council reserves. They're bounded by Dane Drive, Vaughan Avenue and Main Street in Gosford. Both of those parks are considered to have a heritage significance because of their cultural, social, historic and social representative values. There's also research potential within Rotary Park of the archaeological remains from the war. Importantly, the legislation that applies in Gosford is under the SEP, the State Environmental Planning Policy, not the local environment. So in 2018, state government came in and did a lot of planning within Gosford, the urban design framework, the SEP and a development control plan. So within the SEP, similarly to the local environment plan, there's a schedule, Schedule 9 within that policy, and that has listed both those parks as heritage items. So the purpose of the CMP is to outline the best practice heritage conservation that should occur in the parks because of their heritage significance, and preserve the parks now and into the future. So what a CMP actually does is it provides a framework for conservation and future management of the parks and guides the short and long-term decision-making for any works that occurs in. So that includes maintenance, any repairs, conservation efforts, and any alterations or additions that occur, including any master plans that are developed. This CMP, the draft CMP, has been prepared in consultation with key stakeholders. That includes Rotary Club, sub-districts of the RSL, some prominent local historians, Indigenous groups, as well as others. So its primary principles are, as we said, recognising its significance as a public recreation space and a memorial space. It's informing the management decisions based on an understanding of that important heritage significance of those individual parks, guiding the management decisions into the future, providing the conservation advice, ensuring heritage values are interpreted and implemented positively, and making sure any records of the existing and any future changes of the parks is recorded. So what we're proposing is to proceed to an exhibition. We're restoring not only exhibitions, but additional sessions. We're proposing roundtable and an FAQs session. We've considered the audience and would be the most effective this draft CMP. Any questions?
Yes, that's the Walsh.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. So with the public exhibition, so the feedback from that can still be fed into the conservation management.
Absolutely. So this is definitely a draft. Although we have consulted with key stakeholders, we want to have the roundtable and an FAQs, and we'll absorb any feedback that we see through that session, as well as any submissions in support or suggesting change.
Thank you, because it does sound like it's come a long way from where it was at. So, you know, I thank you for that. And yeah, so just wanting to know that those public voices can still be fed into.
I'll just, sorry, make a comment.
Next, not.
So firstly, I know it's late, but I just want to thank the staff for bringing this because it is such an important site. And I haven't looked at the master plan, but I guess one of my comments would be, and just an observation, as a teacher, I use that site. I take school groups down there. and we answer questions and do all of that. So if it's not already there, I'd love to see a bit of an education component into the plan in terms of how that site can be interpreted. I'm sure it's probably is already there because that's part of heritage. But and my only other question is, does this site have the strongest protection possible on it? I mean, I know it's listed in the SEP and all of that, but is that the strongest protection we can give that site?
Yeah, so I'll get my subject matter expert. So it is legally listed.
Yeah.
And yes, the memorial is on the register, but obviously the statutory way of that. So state register, which has a high level of protection and different legislation that applies as well. But based on the values that have been presented, and there has been one of the local historians previously tried to seek to have cenotaph put on the state register, and at that time a decision was not made to proceed.
Made by whom?
Heritage New South Wales.
By the Heritage Council, so a private member of the community put up a state nomination, mostly around the cenotaph and its position in that park. And at the time, the Heritage Council under the Heritage Act often has priorities of what they're looking for in any given time. And that wasn't one of their priorities at that time, so it didn't get up.
Okay. Well, I'd like to flag that,
So
maybe not
can
for
we
this motion.
ask when that was? I actually used to know, but I can't remember.
It was a couple of years ago. I'll have to find out exactly.
It was at least a couple of years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah. It's not a very recent thing, yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't prohibit, it doesn't stop anyone from reapplying, and
That's right.
other people can
That's-
reapply.
Would there be more weight if council applied for it, you think, or?
Nothing official, but I think to know that it had the support of council to do that would also help.
Yeah, and that might come out of the, roundtables and things like that as well, yeah.
Thank you.
One quick question. Obviously, this area very much affects the Gosford waterfront, or adjacent to it. You said there were key stakeholders. Does that include the Central Coast and Hunter Development Corporation?
Yeah, HCCDC. In discussions we've had, we've prepared, we've advised them we were preparing this work. They understand the listings. We're putting into the previous work the council did as part of the waterfront development. So we're providing the advice, and all that advice was handed over. So whilst we haven't specifically targeted them as part of this work, they have all the information about it. It's significant.
So they're aware. And I guess I'll see it when it goes on public exhibition as well.
Okay, recommendation.
Just a quick comment. Thanks for putting all the old photos in. I'm just saying to my fellow councillor here, it was wonderful. I've heard about the history, but to see it all combined in that one format was excellent.
Great work from the team.
Okay, who wants to move it? Councillor Walsh. There you go.
Let me hand
Oh,
up.
you weren't going.
We doing also.
Yeah, there you go. Councillor Merlin. I'll put that. All those in favour? Unanimously. Thank you. Now I'm thinking maybe we can do the next bit in two parts.
It's confidential.
We will, but we've also got a part of, as a recommendation, slightly amend the terms of reference, which wouldn't be confidential, so we could deal with that. I'm not sure everyone's got that. What it says is the MP committee is using its delegation from council regarding the terms of reference for the coastal and floodplain use management subcommittee amends clause 12.4 to state selection of the community representatives is to be determined by the members of the environmental planning committee. Clarify the selection process for subcommittee members. That's come from the director.
Sorry, that's not on the, in the.
No. It's up there now on the screen.
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's separate, so I was going to come to that in the confidential, I think, councillor Neil. Whereas this part is clearly not confidential, so therefore I thought we should deal with it.
Put it all together.
No, there's no basis for doing. No.
If I can just explain, councillor, councillors, we're just about to put it on the screen. We're just finding out.
And what's the justification?
So councillors, it's a little bit unclear in the terms of reference who is doing the selection of the advisory committee, subcommittee members from the community. It sort of references the committee. We understood that this was going to be the EP committee, but we wanted to make sure that that's clear. So we're putting a resolution just to confirm that the EP committee will be doing the selection process for the
Which we're about to do
community
next.
members.
Which is what we're doing tonight, right?
Yes. Yes.
Who's on the subcommittee? Which councillors?
There's 9 councillors listed here.
No, I don't have the list with me.
I have to get the list.
Director, what you're saying is it's the EMP committee that are making the selection.
So councillors,
Right now.
yeah, if you look at this,
Right after this.
is that because this committee's been delegated the terms of reference from council, I was suggesting you just confirm that so you can see there in quotes, selection of community representatives for the coastal estuary and floodplain risk management subcommittee is to be determined by the members of the council's environment planning committee, and that's just to clarify that section of the terms of reference because you could have read it both ways.
So I'll move that.
Sorry, I'd still appreciate some further clarification about which councillors are on the actual subcommittee, because I'm not sure the intention was for this committee to determine that.
That was, we
Yeah.
did that at the council meeting by the whole of council.
That is.
Unanimous decision on that one.
Yeah, it was a resolution, my
Yeah.
understanding.
But it didn't say that?
It did, it said that the EMP committee will select the committee. It was just that I think the terms of reference was an oversight because council meeting.
Yeah.
In the council meeting, we said we're delegating to EMP for doing the terms of reference and then doing the selection. But I think we got the terms of reference last meeting and we were too busy talking about what dates and what so and so.
So you're seconding
Yeah.
that. Thank you, councillor Stanton. Any more debate? I'll put that. All those in favour?
I am going to vote in favour of it, but are we still having point 1 and 2 and this is point 3?
No, this is a separate
the whole-
resolution before we get to.
Oh, it's before we get to
I don't see how this can be in confidential.
No,
That's
no.
that's why I'm doing it now.
stand, yep. Chair.
No, that's okay. I was trying to explain why I thought it had to be done.
Yeah. I am now understanding. It's getting late for my brain.
It's late, I
I
understand.
think the terms of reference.
That's okay.
Okay.
All right, so I'll put it again. All those in favour? Councillor Wald. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. All right, now I think we need to have a motion to move into confidential session. Consider the various applicants.
Yeah.
So moved by councillor Stanton, second by councillor Walsh. I'll put that, so that's just the procedural motion to move into confidential. Moved by councillor Stanton and seconded by councillor Walsh. That's okay. So yes, I'll put the procedural motion. All those in favour? Unanimous, carried.
Need to check that the video's off.
Yes.
haven't asked their permission to get off this over that.
Yeah, we could do that. We could ask them in that same time.
That's actually a good point, because things can change quickly for people who, in terms of what.
Yes, we're ready, yeah.
To and all. that
Okay.
sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I think that sounds reasonable.
I don't think we need to be so specific in the motion to say that, rather just say like that we write to all the candidates that were successful as well as not successful and for
I
that.
don't think we should do it. I mean, the staff will take that on board.
I'd like it part of the motion.
Recommend to council.
In the same way that when I was at the infrastructure meeting, councillor Nichols noted that when we thanked the incoming federal ministers for their forward of money and grants, and we wrote to them to thank them. We put it as part of the motion.
Yeah. I don't have an issue with that. It's perfectly reasonable.
It's there. You're right, recommend.
There's enough unsuccessful jobs that people never.
Yeah, I don't-
I think I'll probably support that even more so than the
I'm not sure, I'm
Please.
not sure we have to recommend it if it's delegated power.
An expression of interest.
No, I just,
I'll also recommend, I'll let the director know. No, dear John letters. I understand that the unsuccessful ARIC members got generic letters and said, the applicant.
Oh, yeah, can we
No,
be
not
specific and
acceptable.
write their names?
So really high profile people.
No, not acceptable. Yeah.
No.
Committee confirmed letters.
Is anything designed to annoy people?
So let's.
A phone call, oh God.
Oh, gosh, yeah, right.
When they sent me a letter.
I'm so sick of having
No,
this.
it's unacceptable. Not that hard. Actually, that is something.
Moved by councillor Stanton, seconded by councillor Merlin.
Yep.
You happy with that?
I still believe that we should ask them. Let's go.
Yeah, but I think they'll do.
You're gonna do that anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I also asked, we went through the ARIC nomination. And they all got the John letters that were unsuccessful. Can we customise it like the John, the Doug?
Yep.
Instead of the applicant?
Yeah,
It's flowery letterhead.
it does.
So is that where you go to write to me if they want to stay on the bench?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
We need to say something like the committee,
Yeah, a part of the motion is like,
the
the
committee
committee has selected these three.
recommended in closed, in confidential session, the appointment of members of the subcommittee, something like that, isn't it?
No, I think we should leave
I
out.
think you're actually.
Yeah.
Read the resolution in public session. Yeah, would be what I remember.
Okay. All right, the committee considers the information regarding applications for community representation to the Coastal Estuary and Floodplain Risk Management Subcommittee. Who selects community representatives for the appointment to committee in accordance with the terms of reference for that subcommittee. Further resolves pursuant to section 11, subsection 3 of the Local Government Act 1993, that attachment 1 to this report remains confidential in accordance with section 10, capital A, subsection 2, section A of the Local Government Act, as they contain personnel matters concerning particular individuals other than councillors.
Yep.
I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you all for your attendance. And I hope you all have a good sleep after that.
Oh.